Welcome to the Featured Anime Podcast. I'm your host, Jack.
And I'm Rick.
And today we are talking about Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters, which was a random choice for this week. But before that, we were kind of recapping Immortal Guild as well as some other discussions that happened outside of it. Attack of Killer Tomatoes, Mars Attacks, some great cinematic choices made by directors and everything else. If you want to catch part of that wider conversation, you can join us at patreon.com/featured anime podcast, or you can join us live at twitch.tv/featured anime podcast and hang out with us, talk to us and everything else there. And of course, if you want to get yourself some nice, delicious Tokyo treats for some nice deliciousness in your tummy, go ahead and use our affiliate link in the show notes along with the coupon code Featured Anime. Get $5 off that very first box, and trust me, the treats are worth it. And of course, all the information and everything like that is available on our website at featuredanimepodcast.com as well as in the show notes. And now on to the meat and brotatoes. All right. Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters is a movie that came out in November 2017. Producer for it is TOHO. Studio for it is Polygon Pictures. It's an original. The genres are action, adventure, sci-fi, and it ran for an hour and 27-ish minutes.
Yeah.
So, this movie takes place in a version of the world where obviously Godzilla is real along with all the monsters. And instead of humans kind of sort of peacefully coexisting with Godzilla, he actually rampages and humanity has decided to escape Earth. And they have tried going and finding other habitable planets, only to realize after 20 years in their time that they have not been able to really find anything, and they're running low on resources. So they return back to Earth. And when they return back to Earth, they find that it is vastly different from what they realize. And they believe they found a way to be able to defeat Godzilla. And that is kind of the basis of this, right? They go out, they leave Earth because of the monsters and Godzilla. They're not able to find a new homeworld. So after 20 years of going out there and finding stuff, they are deciding to come back and, try to reclaim their planet from Godzilla, so to speak.
Well, I mean, yes. And they also assumed that Godzilla would kind of be dead because now, did you watch the sub or the dub?
Subbed.
Okay. I watched English with subbed, and the English versus the subbed was very, very different. For instance, one of the biggest discrepancies was in English. They said, "Oh, it's only been 20 years for us, but it's been 20,000 years for the world." But the sub only said 10,000 years. So, it's a long time.
Well, so when they first showed up, they estimated it to be 10,000 years, and then they were able to carbon date it to about 20,000 years. So when they first showed, they said 10, and they said that in the subbed. Right. But then when they went down to the planet, because on the planet, they carbon dated stuff, and they said, oh, it's roughly about 20,000 years is how long we've actually been gone.
Yeah, but they did that in the sub. They said that, but they didn't correct it.
What do you mean?
Like in the English version, they were still saying it was a much, much shorter amount of time. But they were saying, actually, wait, hold on. Let me retract that. Okay. Yeah. So. Nope. Sorry. You're right. Took me a second. I was trying to think of it because I'm like, hold on. I know that they said both time frames, and I know that they were wildly mistaken because they said that they were 9.2 million. It's 9.2 light years away. And when they came back, they were able to warp drive. But in the warp drive, it took them another 9.2 light years or years or something like that to get back. But they didn't really alter themselves or go to hypersleep or whatever. And what was funny is their calculations are like, we're going to have to run our engines at 170% of capacity.
Yeah, they do specify things at 170% capacity, which I find honestly to be really ridiculous, right? You can't you can't have it be more than 100, right? I mean, like mathematically possible, you can't have it be above 100 because once you get to above 100, it's honestly it's I like to say things that are at 100%, 170% or whatever, but realistically it's not possible. And Mark in our YouTube, Mark in our chat says you can run it at 170% if you aren't a coward, which I mean, to be fair,
well, do you want to still work when you're there?
Yeah. I mean, like, to be fair, right? To be fair,
that's when you blow apart every engine and every shield you have up while in subspace. And coming out of subspace is very gentle and calm and,
right.
survivable.
Right. Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Okay. So I just want to try and get some clarification here. And I know that CJ seen it. He's seen the trilogy. He watched it. I have a question, right? And I don't have the answer for it. But it looks like, so you have Haruo, right? The main protagonist for it. And then you have a couple of the other guys, right? Galu, and then you have Metaphys or whatever his name is or whoever, right? Are they different from the conversations that were happening throughout the show, right? Throughout the movie. Am I mistaken in thinking that they are different alien species that had made contact with Earth prior to them going to space and then them being in space and then returning? Because the conversations that were kind of happening was we have been drifting around space a lot longer than you ever have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. However, it also, from the conversations of them seeing Godzilla, looks like they know who Godzilla is. And from some of the images that they
kind of.
Okay, so CJ says they are different alien species and that they helped build the ships, if he remembers right. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that was correct because that's what it seemed like to me. It seemed like otherworldly entities, aka aliens, helped humans, yeet themselves off the planet, so to speak.
Anyway, so the English version, they clearly said that when the kaiju started popping up all over the place, they couldn't fight them. They tried fighting. They had mild successes, and then Godzilla showed up, and they're like he was the one that we couldn't defeat. And then we had flying saucers show up, and they were. I thought originally they were only one species of alien, but there might have been two. They helped to trade for a habitable space. They were willing to help share technology and help fight against Godzilla. Ultimately, it didn't work. And they all basically loaded up, and they were trying to unleash Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah, which ended up failing and not getting off the ground.
Well, I don't think they ever actually started it up. Like
when I say it didn't get off the ground, I mean in general they weren't able to deploy Mecha Godzilla. And they left. Like it was abandoned before they actually started it.
Before it was viable. See, I thought it was viable. They just couldn't kick it into gear. And anyway.
Either way, they couldn't get it going. Yeah. Right. And
failure to launch. So yeah.
Right. And CJ says that there are you learn more about them in the other movies, which is great because I would absolutely hate to not have context for everything that kind of goes on there. Because in this movie, they kind of show you currently where humanity's at.
Yes.
And then they backtrack to them leaving just to catch up to where they're at again. And then it proceeds forward from there. So there's some context, not enough information though, kind of broken out at the exact same time. They give you just enough information, just enough to tantalize those taste buds. And at the exact same time, because on the title card, right? The preview picture, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
it has a one there, so you note that there's multiple. And the fact that it says, "Hey, check this out." Episode 1 really leans hard into the fact that there's multiple movies for this. So they definitely.
You watched it on Netflix, right?
Yes.
So Netflix has this thing where they'll put episode 1 for movies if it's part of a not a series, but if it's a part of a universe or something like that. Like I've seen
part of a set.
I've seen other movies where they're like, episode 1, how many episodes? Only 1. And you're like, oh, okay. So like they've done that in the past. So I wasn't that didn't tee me off to there were any more. Although I was really hoping there were. But one of the things that I've seen on this one that was kind of interesting is, there was 3 different races, and they did mention that when they were saying, hey, we need a few battalions, probably 2 battalions from each race, countering up to 600 people to go on this, essentially a suicide mission in their eyes. And I looked at one of them, I was like, he looks like, oh shucks, what's the guy's name? Who is Link's enemy?
Ganon.
And Ganon, yeah. The guy looked like Ganondorf, and I was like, wow, they're really. I thought the dudes that were religious were supposed to be good and like be angelic, slightly taller, a little bit better, that kind of thing. And when they said that there's 3 races, that's when it clicked for me. I was like, oh, okay, no, that makes sense. And then when they were mentioning that the destroyers show up, and the destroyers are that they destroy arrogance, and the weird thing is the English said pride, the subs said arrogance.
I mean, like, technically it's the same thing. It's not the same thing, I know, but I'm saying, I mean, depending on how you want to.
Interchangeable,
Yeah.
For this purpose, they're definitely interchangeable, but I feel like the delivery of those of the different verbiage there might shed a different light. You know what I mean? Like if you're arrogant, then of course, everyone wants to take you down.
Right.
But if you're prideful, you have pride in yourself and you're proud of something, it's slightly different in my mind, because if you're arrogant, you're automatically a jerk. But if you're prideful, you're proud of the work you've accomplished and who you are and stuff like that. So I can see the arrogance in having pride of something you've never worked for. Like, I'm human. I've got pride in being human. Well, you didn't have to work for it. It was just something that was given to you, so that'd be considered arrogance. So I understand where they're coming from with that kind of, if that even was their own intention. But apparently wherever sentience happens, wherever humanoid beings show up, kaiju show up much later to essentially humble. They end up humbling everyone who was audacious. Is that a word? Audacious? Who's bold enough to claim Earth is theirs, or their own planet is theirs. And the religious person kind of sees them as the arbiter of destruction, the equalizer, the resetter kind of thing.
Right.
And it made me curious, like, because they said we've seen countless worlds where right before we show up, or right after we showed up, or we were too late to see these worlds save themselves. And it made me think, like, are you like, if this was any other movie, I would see these aliens coming down and sprinkling the organisms that make the kaiju to cause and wreak havoc so that they can gain their own resources. And then I was like, they didn't go that route, but they could very well have.
They could
definitely gone that route.
Yeah.
And then I was also thinking, like, the main characters here are just so dumb. So dumb.
Yeah.
And I say, well, one, you're trying to fight Godzilla. Dumb move to begin with. You don't have King Kong on your side.
Hey, you know what? So for the originality of the story, and to be fair, in general, in all the other movies and everything like that, they've always tried to fight Godzilla. That is not anything unique. And when you see someone wandering around, smashing things and blowing things up and everything else, what are you going to do? You're going to try and fight. You're going to throw everything you got. And to be fair, they did literally throw everything they got. I think they decided we threw
140 nukes.
Yeah. Which honestly, at that point, how the planet would still be there after 140 nukes?
Yeah.
Well, to be fair,
you just blew off half the world.
To be fair, there's a couple of different types of nukes that are there. So depending on the type that they tried to use, and I'm assuming they probably used both, right? There's a lot that goes into this.
The little ones don't work. Go for the big ones.
Yeah, but yeah, to be fair, like Mark said in our comments, he goes, I think this is one of those things you kind of let it slide because otherwise you don't have a movie. And that is 100% it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is 100% it. There's a lot of things in this movie. There's a lot of things honestly in here that you just gotta let it slide. Right? You can't focus on like the fiery passion in his eyes, right? You can't just like focus on that because honestly, what's the point of it? You know? It's like the time traveling granddaughter that never existed, right?
It did. It just didn't exist in the anime.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Right. So there's no need to focus on it.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, Mark from the comment says, we need to fight back. Oh, we can just leave? Yeah, that's cheaper. Let's do that. End credits. He's right. The movie just wouldn't show up that way. But what I mean to say that they were dumb, they knew the general area in which Godzilla roamed. Like, it was a massive landmass. That said, there was also massive land masses that Godzilla wasn't, where they projected he wouldn't be or they wouldn't be. And I was thinking, if you're only there for resources, all you really got to do is drop down and get water, get air, get resupply, do something like that. And let's assume they mentioned that Godzilla moved at 40 kilometers an hour. Okay, let's assume it's a nonstop movement and they go faster in water, right?
Yeah.
If you were to do that, if you do those calculations, you could drop roughly halfway around the world from where Godzilla currently is. And you can monitor Godzilla because it gives off a particular...
how they were able to find Godzilla wasn't a particular signature or anything. They saw it there and then they heard the signature Godzilla sound, which is pretty mainstay even in old movies. It's like there ain't no replacing Godzilla's sound, right? And that's how they were able to identify him. They identified him by his sound. They were like, "Oh, that's it," and they called it out too. That sound is unforgettable. You know,
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. But what I'm saying is, once they found Godzilla, they'd be able to track Godzilla. Because when they went down there originally, they were just wondering what was there and praying that Godzilla wasn't still alive. And then they're like, "Oh no, it is." But once you find out where that is, you can, assuming you're only doing it for resources and you're doing it essentially to survive, you could drop down half a world away, gather your things, and then hop back, and like basically play a game of tag, if you will. Like you're attracting Godzilla. You've got 6 hours, get as much as you can, do whatever you need to, so that you no longer are starving. You no longer are working with just like food rations with no water. Like one of the biggest driving factors of this movie was they were running out of resources that they had them for themselves.
Right.
Like they were running out of water. They were running out of food.
People were starving. Again, going back to the beginning where I said, they were running out of resources, so they went back to Earth. Yeah. Right.
They also had to call their own people.
Well, yeah.
That's why the old people died.
Well, so again, right. That's to be fair, right? That is exactly what Haru says, right? He goes, that they're just being sent to their death, and that's what he's saying and everything else. However, anything beyond that is not explicitly stated, right? It's heavily implied. You and I both know that is more than likely the case. However, at the very beginning, you just see him going down to a mysterious planet that should be habitable or not. And then all of a sudden, boom, it explodes. Yeah. Okay. So
Well, but a little bit later, again, in the English version, they say very specifically there's not enough water to go around. People are starving, things like that, which is why they make their plan to go back to Earth.
Yeah, well, they say that at the very beginning too, which is why I said they're running out of resources. Resources is kind of encompassing of water, food, everything else. You know, what the things you need to sustain life in general, they're running out of. Hence, going back to.
But the thing that got me was that these people, these aliens, were able to find Earth, just like they were able to find countless other planets. You would think they would have some kind of way to find other locations, because the way they make it sound is Earth is the last vestige of any kind of the sustenance or viability.
Well, what the aliens actually say is, you know, we've been wandering around a lot longer than you, and we've seen other things like that. That being that's the case, the universe, the galaxies, it's pretty big, right? And the time distance in between our galaxy and the closest galaxy to us, the Andromeda galaxy, just to travel at light speed, you know, for the next 1,000 years, you would still not even be able to reach it. It would take thousands and thousands of years for you to reach the closest neighboring galaxy, right?
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So in our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, for the solar systems that are here, it is pretty big, right? And for them to have traveled to every single planet within the solar system or within the galaxy, right? It's kind of unrealistic, even for them. And the fact that for what they have found, granted, it is a highly likely and possible scenario where, yes, we could totally be the last vestige in that movie. I doubt it, though. I mean, like the number of ones that are out there, because they went to a planet and it's like, this might be habitable. The aliens, if they had gone to that planet before, they would have been like, hey, bro, we've been here before. This is a no-go.
Makes sense. Well, it makes sense unless they had an ulterior motive. Because as you mentioned, they've been out and stranded and away from their home so long that they've essentially lost the hope that the humans have, because the humans they've only been gone for 20 years, whereas these other people have been gone potentially generations.
Right. But at the exact same time, you would go, hey, I completely understand the need for it and everything like that. But, you know, hey, there's still hope out there, right? And for them to still wander around and them actually coming across Earth doesn't mean that they don't have hope. It means that they continually have hope, and they believe that they will be able to find another home, because they were technically able to find another home, however short-lived it was.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for however short-lived it was. Yes. But what's crazy to me is they showed up with the knowledge that the kaiju were something you can't beat. There was a destroyer there that would eventually show up that you just couldn't touch.
Well, they said that they found other planets that had much worse destroyers that couldn't be touched. Right. So it was more along the lines of them like, hey, we've seen other planets go through this thing. Right. Again, they've seen other planets go through it where the destroyers were much worse.
I was gonna say I don't remember the much worse part, but that's even more worrisome. Could you imagine? Jeez.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you take this if this is canon, and the rest that we've seen in the past are also canon, that means that you have, because Godzilla's technically king of.
Don't like mash the two of them together. No. This is an original story. Right. It's an original.
I thought this might.
No,
this might have been like a secondary origin story, but okay.
No. This is an original, pure and simple. That's all it is an original story, and take it as that. Right. Don't go, well, in this other movie and everything like that, because you have a couple different remakes. You have different versions of it. So don't disregard all those.
Then you have some retcons.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question then.
Okay.
If you're supposed to disregard them, so I came to this movie with prior knowledge of Godzilla, as I'm sure all do. But one of the canon things before was Godzilla just gets stronger with age. Like the older they get, the stronger they get.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very confusing to me because when they come back 20,000 years later, Godzilla's not all that strong. And it took a while to figure out what exactly was going on. And then they're like, oh, we found this like super duper convenient loophole to kill. And
right. Again, the method in which Godzilla is using and the power that he has is different from the other movies, right? This is specifically electricity. The other ones were more along the lines of radiation. And they measured his power in this movie with electrical voltage.
With gigajoules. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. So keep, and again, how they showcase the power happening, they show a field around him every single time and him popping it out. So you, again, just don't conflate this with other movies and things like that. Just, this is its own. It's its own.
Other movie.
No. This is its own. Ignore it. No, ignore it. No, ignore it. Ignore it.
It's a completely different time zone.
Ignore it.
Different genre even.
Yeah.
It's Back to the Future. But every time they said gigajoules, I could only think of Doc being like, we need to go back in time. We need whatever he said.
1.3 gigajoules.
Yeah. So I was like, they
flux
just need
capacitors. What?
So even though you're like, don't think of anything, I couldn't stop. And I was like,
so anyways,
Godzilla would make a perfect time
going
machine.
Into anything else. Because we don't have a time machine. If it going to anything else would be like spoilery territory, right?
Oh no, I agree 100%.
Okay, so
that's one of the reasons I didn't go that far yet.
Okay. Well, yeah. Keyword was you were heading that way. I saw you. You were on the ship. You were pointing that way. You were like,
the spoilers,
and you were
caressing the S. You know.
Right. Yeah, you were whispering sweet nothings to it is what you were doing. All right.
1.21 gigajoules. That's what it was.
There you go. You're good. Anyways, yeah. Going any further, going any deeper into the conversation, would result in a spoiler-esque type thing. I will say this. I will tell you this. There is an after credits scene, however short it is. Do watch it. Do check it out simply because it definitely kind of piques your interest even more for the second movie, which surprise, what are we going to be watching next? I don't know. Is it going to be?
You know what? To go out of order, let's watch Godzilla 3. You know, makes perfect. I'm kidding.
What I was going to say is kind of a spoilery-esque type thing. We're going to watch another instead. Again, because what? No, I'm kidding. Because I actually watched it. You haven't watched it. Well, I mean, like you've seen it, but I watched it. It was, if I remember correctly, it was a solo episode. I was just in there sad and lonely all by my lonesome. But no.
I've seen it.
What we're going to be talking about next week is going to be Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, which is the second movie in the trilogy. And then spoileries for you all. It will be the third movie in the trilogy, Godzilla the Planet Eater. So anyways, I don't have anything else to really go into other than ratings, sir. So are you ready for a rating?
I am ready for a rating.
All right. So on a scale of up to 10, how would you rate this?
This was a heavily ecchi movie, so I'm going to have to give it like a 2. I'm kidding.
Obviously. No, precursor to that
really
pre-show, in case you were wondering there, people. CJ, I'll fill you in here in the live post-only show.
Yeah. No, so I was thinking about it, and as a solo, this was a really good beginning. Assuming you have no idea of what's going on, it is very Cloverfield-esque to me, because the big bad wasn't really... It was shown, but it wasn't like shown until necessary. And it was very anticlimactic is not what I was going to say, but climactic doesn't seem like a good terminology to use for this movie. It was very well done. It was very well paced, and I enjoyed it immensely. And if it's a Netflix original, they did a really good job. Animation style was a bit annoying. I'm not going to lie. You do get used to it, but it's an hour and a half long, and I didn't get used to it until probably the half-hour mark. So a third of the movie, I just didn't like how it looked. That's my biggest gripe with it. So that said, if it was a different animation style, it'd be a heck of a lot higher. But I'm probably going to rate it like, you know what? No, I'm going to rate it higher than this. I was going to give it a 7. I'm going to give it an 8 because in spite of me disliking the animation style, the show itself made me not care that much about it.
Great. It
didn't have much music going on, so the ambience and stuff like that didn't make much sense. But yeah, I'm giving it an 8.
Okay. Well, to be fair, Polygon Pictures, this is the style that they're actually known for. In case you don't remember, Polygon Pictures did Ajin. They did.
Yep. No, I remember.
Yeah. Okay. So
and just like Ajin, I said, in spite of the animation style, it was a good story.
Right. So this is kind of a mainstay for them. A lot of their shows that they put out or movies that they put out, this is the animation style for them, at least for the more popular ones that, you know, I guess they specialize in CGI shows and movies, but
okay.
For me, honestly, I'm going to give it an 8 because it scratched that wonderful itch for me, that wonderful kaiju itch where I could not help but love it, where it was amazing. I just, it made me want to rewatch all the original Godzillas again and just kind of bask in its glory. The story though, in general was good. It kept me engaged. It definitely left me with a lot of questions, but at the exact same time, I know that there's another movie for me to go and watch. So that kind of helps influence my score a little bit, that I'm going to be able to get some answers for those questions that I don't have. And at the exact same time, knowing that it's part of a trilogy where I'm going to have more world building, more character building, more answers given to me, just makes it that much better. So that way I can really kind of get to know everything that's going on, so I can get my answers. So 8 for me, and what was that? 2 for you, right? 9?
Yeah, no. 8 for me as well.
All right, so 8. Yeah, and again, we're going straight into the second one, City on the Edge of Battle for this next one, Godzilla. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. We hope you like this week's choice. If you feel like we got something right, something wrong, too much justice, not enough justice, or anything like that, feel free to let us know and reach out to us. All our contact information is available in the show notes, as well as on our website at featuredanimepodcast.com. And until next time, I'm Jack.
I'm Rick, and we'll see you next time.